Welcome back to Luck on Sunday. Delighted to say that I have been joined by three-time champion jockey and legend of the weighing room, Richard Dunwoody. Richard Dunwoody alongside me. The first thing you said when we started that was, "Oh God, it's like I've died."
It's like an obituary, yeah.
Which got a stark...
I'm still here.
You are.
Yeah,
welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks
very much. Thanks for having me.
What are the sort of, when you do look back at some of those great moments, champion hurdle wins, Gold Cup wins, two wins at Aintree on the biggest stage of all for some. What are the overwhelming emotions when you look back at them?
Yeah, fantastic. The national wins. Mini Homer in particular, just that he was so unexpected on the ground. Didn't think he'd really get round. I'd only ridden him once before at Newbury. And then we look at the Charter Party race and think, God, talk about excessive. I should have been pulled off in that day. But there we are. It's great memories, and yeah, I was very lucky to be part of those. The team that around those horses. You talk about that in your book, actually, obsessed about the Charter Party. Now, when you look back at it, you won a Gold Cup at the age of 24, I think it was. Yeah.
I mean, incredible. But you do say you don't. If you watch it back now, I mean, even then you're thinking, I don't love watching that
I'm
back.
flinching a little bit. Never mind. But that's how it was a bit in those days. Scoot was probably even harder than I was on some horses, and that's how we rode. And thankfully, I think the rules, the stick rules, have adapted, changed over the years, and all for the better.
I don't know how much you've stayed in touch with horse racing as is. The rules on the whip have changed, but just before we come on to that, perhaps, I mean, where are you, Richard Dunwoody, the retired jockey now? And we'll talk about what you've been doing subsequently. But where are you racing-wise at the moment?
Racing-wise, well, we've actually moved to Spain, so we're living in Madrid. And we've been out there since July. We've got a few more decisions to make, but we're looking to get residency out there. And we've got Millie is in school. She's 3, so she's in a bilingual school there. Speaks far better Spanish than I do, so she's learning Chinese as well. So, and she seems to love it, and she's very settled there. So we'll see how things sort of go over the next month or so.
Does that mean that you're a very different individual now? With the arrival of Millie in particular, I suppose people say that changes you. But are you and you have been setting yourself some serious tasks over the last 20 years or so since you retired. But are you a very different individual now, would you say?
Yeah, you change, obviously, for those days when all you focus on in, say, 93, 94, and 94, 95 season when I was writing for Martin Pipe, it was like 24 hours a day, just non-stop racing from the moment you woke up in the morning and until the time you went to bed, and then you were sort of half dreaming about it all night as well. So absolutely obsession with racing and riding the next winner, and that's how it was.
And that said, it wasn't as if you followed a path which plenty of champion jockeys followed. Peter Scudamore before you, the champion jockey before you, stayed in racing. Tony McCoy, the champion jockey after you, he has stayed in racing as well. You seem to quite soon after, before you tried a bit of punditry, say, yeah, I will quite likely distance myself from the sport which has given me so much.
Yeah, that's the way it was. My father trained, having been around trainers for 20 odd years, I didn't want to train. I didn't particularly want to be an agent. I went back, did a little bit for the BBC for about 4 or 5 years before they lost it, the coverage. Did
you enjoy doing that?
Yes, I did. It was a challenge as well. I was living abroad. Sometimes I was in France doing a course there, and then coming back, and so having to know everything about all that had gone on in Cheltenham, and then we were covering it at Aintree. But it was a challenge. It was good to do. But that experience is gone, and you move on, go with the flow, really.
And what was the first thing that led you to say, I need something to really get the adrenaline pumping? Because North Pole, South Pole, 40 days around Newmarket, Japan, North Korea marathons. What is it that led you? Did you just still feel that need for adrenaline?
I think I've been very lucky, and thanks to racing and the people I've met through racing as well, that these things have sort of cropped up. I've never particularly planned. Eventually I did plan to go to the South Pole. It took 3-4 years to get it all together, but I was very lucky. I was reintroduced to David Hemphill-Adams. See some of the shots here, but it was David that got me to go on the magnetic North Pole race. And then the 48-day slog to this, I could have ridden on the flash after that one. So I came back.
It was so easy to lose weight.
I came back. It's a great place to lose weight. Anyway, we were eating probably 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day, and still probably covering about 15 miles, dragging the sleds from the Recovery Glacier. We're the only people to have walked in that route. So it was fantastic. Doug Stipe, who led. There was only 2 of us got there in the end, but
this was the Ernest Shackleton route.
That was the Ernest Shackleton route to the pole, to the South Pole. So an amazing experience getting to the pole, shown into the base. Told we were allowed one cup of coffee and 2 biscuits, and then you have to get back in your tent, where we had to wait for 3 days for a plane to pick us back up. But it was tough. Toughest thing I've done. I say probably about 40 pound I'd lost before that picture was taken.
Was that the hardest of all the challenges you've set yourself since retiring?
Yeah, definitely.
And was it harder than anything you did as a jockey?
In some respects, obviously it was as a top jockey. The schedule is punishing as it is, whether it's the saunas, the driving, keeping the weight down. It was a hard slog, but those 48 days were purgatory. They were hard. Yeah.
And there's also Afghanistan you've been to as well. And the game that you played out there has escaped my mind, but I'm sure you'll remind.
Bushkashi, it's their national sport. Apparently the old Afghans have played it with the bodies of Russian soldiers and stuff, but they're a tough race, as you can imagine. But I did get invited to play a game up the Wakhan corridor, and it was amazing to be. And
they, as graphic as this sounds, the way out there, as you say, it's their national sport, and it's brutal sport for humans and to an extent animals as well. And they play with a headless goat, I believe. Is that right?
A carcass, and yep, it's they get stuck in. Apparently, there's the championships, the Asian championships, or the Nomad championships, where they also congregate in Kyrgyzstan, I think. And I know people that have represented America for that, and they said they were in bits at the end of it. So
did you find it difficult when you did?
It was good. The one thing you have to do is get a horse or a mount that's not too tall, because I've been on one where it was quite leggy, and reaching down to get the carcass, and they say you're breaking bones in your hands and arms and all sorts of injuries going on, but don't get anything that's too tall or too leggy.
Do you think when you went out and met those individuals, do they have any idea that they were talking to you, a man that's broken countless bones and been involved in similar sorts of things?
Absolutely not. And if you can't ride well, then
that's it.
No, that's it. They don't want to know you. But amazing places. I've been very lucky to have visited a lot of countries since I've retired. But I have to say, that country, Afghanistan in particular, is one of the most beautiful. One of the most remote places I've been, up the Wakhan corridor, but one of the best places I've been as well.
And before this goes into a travel documentary, the most recent one is you've done a marathon in North Korea.
Yeah, went to North Korea. I wanted to visit the country, but I thought, if I'm going to do another marathon, then let's do somewhere different. And went out there last year and got through.
Is part of this for you not just the the doing, but the planning and the plotting and the making sure it can happen. The task in itself is not just completing it, but also surely setting up what's either difficult places to go to or difficult tasks to complete.
Yeah, it does take a bit of planning. Yeah, certainly does. And obviously, you've got the training to, set myself to get under 4 hours. So yeah, that needs a bit of training. And by about 10 seconds, I think. Yeah, I left my run late there. It was, I almost had to sprint round it, but we finished in this huge stadium, their national stadium, with about 25. Well, they say 50,000. I think it was more like 25 to 30,000 people in there, all with their clapperboards. And I was sort of having a look at the clock. So it was literally a sprint round the last lap. I was in bits.
I love that I asked, did you do it? Of course you did it. Richard Dunwoody did do that.
Just got in.
Are you still in touch with some of the people from the weighing room of old, the Scoos,
not necessarily. I spoke to Scoo during the autumn, spoke to AP on Friday, and he was in good form, filmed me full of all the gossip at Arsenal and stuff, so that was good to have a chat with him. Hopefully we were sort of we'd have dinner once or twice a year, and hopefully we'll catch up in the next.
Both Arsenal fans?
Both Arsenal fans, yeah.
Competitive bunch,
Frankie is as well, I believe, so... things didn't go well the other night, but there we go.
Talking of AP, I mean, when you left the sport, he was on his way up. I mean, he'd won X amount of champion jockey titles by them, but it certainly didn't necessarily suggest he was going to go on and win 20, or did it, to your mind?
Then he was... I'm not saying he was head and shoulders, had Dicky riding a lot of winners then, Dicky Johnson riding a lot of winners then anyway, but... for the foreseeable, definitely early 2000s, for the foreseeable, AP was going to be champion jockey, and to stretch it all the way, and as long as he did, it's a testament to him. And
you'd been a 3-time champion jockey, but you also seem to have passing Scoo's amount of total winners, which has subsequently, of course, been passed by AP. But that seemed quite a big thing for you to want to achieve.
Yeah, at the time, but I think it all puts it into sort of with AP achieving as many winners, and also Dicky to ride an incredible amount of winners, puts ours completely in the shade.
But does it not? Do you feel it detracts from what you achieved in any way?
Yeah, obviously, in some respect, you look at he over doubled what I rode. I think Richard has, or will soon. So just it does bear testament what incredible jockeys they are.
But might it just be? I mean, and I know you're slightly away from it now, but a different game now compared to that which was around when you were riding in the.
But it was changed. Racing changed from the start. When I was going around with Frank and Steve Smith Eccles at the start, and how racing evolved even those 16, 17 years. And then, obviously, the last 20 years, I'd imagine it's changed immensely too. I always look back at that time, early 90s, and head-to-head with Adrian. I was moved to Pipey to hopefully be assured of winning the championship, and things weren't going well. And I think Robert Kington had been my agent, and then I rang Robert, and things weren't going well. I ended up not doing myself at the time as well. So driving myself completely crazy. And I ended up going to a sports psychologist at the time, and always remember the headlines in the Sun, sort of once they copped hold of the story, that I was going to a sports psychologist that was basically done mad. He's off to the sports psychologist, and then how things have changed now.
Well, you might have seen, I know you were outside in our green room while we were perhaps having that debate about accessibility with Ollie and Richard in here, and about how racing, certainly mental health-wise, seems to have opened its doors a little bit more to that side of the sport. And you would never get a headline now, "Done Maddie." I mean, but you couldn't.
Yeah. That's, and I was just innovation. What could I get to just set me that little bit apart, to try and get that little bit of an edge on Adrian? And I went into the last day. I'd been to Peter Terry on the Friday. That last day at Stratford Market Race, and he just. The main thing was to focus, to do my job, not to worry about what Adrian was doing, to control the controllable. And I believe that really did help win me that championship that year.
Did it take you a while to learn to do that and not trying to control other people in a race?
Yeah, that's it. And I was worried before I went to Peter, I was worrying where Adrian was going, what he was riding, how third he was doing, Murphy at the time. and yeah, not concentrating on my own job. So yeah, it was a real the best thing I ever did, I think.
Was that 93-94 season was your middle success as champion jockey, but undoubtedly the hardest?
I'd say probably the next year was even harder. That year, Adrian was riding winners left, right, and centre. You know, and then I got into a real good run from Christmas. Did have a ban of a few weeks, missed Cheltenham, and then the national came along, and then we were neck and neck for those last few weeks. Adrian had a good run right the last week, but we were high, you know, really high on adrenaline, especially towards the end of the season. The next year was even, I thought, harder. It was almost, we got to sort of February, March, and we're neck and neck again, thinking, you know, do we really have to go through this again? And then, unfortunately for Adrian, he got bad fall at Hereford, I think, towards the end of the season, and that let me in again. But yeah, so maybe that second season was more difficult.
So in some ways, that second season when you did it by 3, I think it was from Adrian, was it satisfying to win it, or was it relief? Or
Total relief. Yeah, total relief at the time. That last day at Stratford, had a couple of winners, had a good afternoon there, and that sort of set it up for me. Market race, and I think Adrian might have won the first couple, and then basically got beaten a couple, and the championship was mine. But it was total relief. Yeah,
friendly rivalry.
And I think it brought myself and Adrian together. There were times when it was getting niggly, and then I put him out through the wing at Nottingham.
Nottingham, you did, didn't you? Yeah. And did he try to get you inside?
Yeah. On one of John White's, I think it was Mr. Genealogy, and yeah, so that it all came to a head then, and I missed Cheltenham, got away as soon as that, and probably that helped as well. You know, I went skiing for the first time, and just cleared my head a little bit then for Liverpool, and got in, had a great time there, winning the national, and then, you know, a really good end to the season.
That national, Mini Homer, was your second. There was a bit of history repeating itself. I think you were number 8 again, as you were with West Tip, I think, and the snow on the ground.
There was the snow on the ground.
Did you feel it was going to happen?
Certainly not before the race. I'd ridden him at Newbury. The one thing he did there, he got to the front and he sort of looked about a lot. So I said to Piper, and he didn't give me any orders, I said to Piper, just don't want to get to the front too soon. So this is it, jump in the second last. So I was really concentrating on getting a good lead. And then I think that's Young Hustler, the loose horse. He just jinks a little, comes across me, jinks a little bit at it. I lose about...
Is that Adrian on your right?
Yeah, Adrian on the right, and the names I'd called him at the third last when we were... Oh, no, he was going to beat me again. So here, just immediately after the fence, I thought he got me beat. And then Moorcroft Boys' run stopped, and he stopped. And then, oh no, I'm left in front. And then the loose horse has gone away then to the stands. What am I going to do? And then, you know, another furlong to go. And then I just see this gigantic head, good old Just So. And I really thought it was beat. So there was a lot of relief when I passed the line here as well.
How was that more satisfying than the first on West Tip 8 years earlier?
I think so. Amazing, but it was all happened when I was very young on West Tip. Mini Homer, I think you appreciate just how difficult it is to win the race, to get round, and especially we knew before, with the ground being so heavy, we knew there weren't going to be many finishes. So, yeah, I was lucky at Beeches. He was right down on his knee there. So,
and Beeches, which had claimed you and West Tip in the year before
the year before I won it as well. And then so win it that year, and then Mini Homer goes back the next year, and he made a bit of a mistake at the first and was never going. So, yeah, caught him on a great day there.
You've spoken about West Tip in the past as being a horse who was just made for a national, and after he won it, he went on to be placed in it with you again. Was he the right sort of horse for a national? Did he know where to be just as much as you did?
Brilliant. Yeah, he was a brilliant horse to go around there. He saw horses making mistakes in front of him. You could actually feel him twisting away from them because he was so wary of what was going on around him. I'm not saying you could have ridden him blindfold, but almost. He was a fantastic horse to ride around there. Yeah, it was a real treat.
And he's a horse that had such a great record around those fences. But the second time at Beeches in '86, you made that move. You literally say, get out.
I think it was Tom on the outside. He was going crazy, Tom Taff. And yeah, I did. There was no way. No one was going to keep me in that second time round. Yeah, that's so we made a beeline for sort of. I like to jump it middle. Generally, it was always the sort of rule that I had those days to jump it middle, sort of middle to outer, if I could. You know.
Another horse who you say was just made for a race, I think, was Desi, of course, the great Desert Orchid, and Kempton just as a whole. Again, blindfold. Could you have done it with him half blindfolded?
Again. Brilliant jumper, except when I wrestled him to the floor the last time he went there. But amazing horse. But he'd always, around that final bend, he'd always sort of give himself a bit of a blow, and then he would just, take off.
Did he half know when to fill himself up again, or when to go again?
Yes, and literally he'd quicken off that bend himself. He's just loving it there.
Where was he ranked?
Probably the most intelligent horse I rode, and the most competitive horse I've ever ridden as well. I only rode him in one close finish at Sandown against Nick the Brief, and there was no way that other horse was going to beat him from the last.
Was he as big as he looks there?
He didn't actually think. No, I don't think he does. It's just strength.
Yeah.
That was the one. First time I got on him was basically that neck in front of you was. It was all power, it was all muscle.
And he almost became public property, didn't he? I don't know if any horse has quite done it since.
Since, not in the same way, best mate, maybe to an extent, but I think with being a grey also, the charisma of Desert Orchid was incredible. You
mentioned Martin Pipe. We had Peter Scudamore in here a couple of months ago, I think, talking about his relationship with Martin Pipe, talking about it positively. He mentioned about the AP McCoy going on and sort of getting Martin. The two of you, I think it's fair to say, in the 2 seasons you had, it wasn't a match made in heaven necessarily.
No, it was. We had very, very difficult times to start, because I think the thing that the virus that had been there sort of at the end of Scoot's career had then sort of developed. It continued into the autumn, and I think I went there and I was trying too hard anyway. These horses, I was probably getting beat on 1 or 2 that should have won, but also they weren't that healthy as well. And then suddenly it just clicked after Christmas and into the spring, and the horses started running a lot better. And then the next year, I suppose with the pressure of the championship and trying to win it again, and how close it had got again, I just felt that being at Martin's wasn't the place to be, and I wanted to have a bit more balance in my life. Wanted to go and ride in Ireland a bit more, put the weight up a few pounds, and I have a total respect for Martin as a trainer. He worked as hard as any other trainer around, and that's why he deserved his success.
Do you think did he, to your mind, did he change the landscape of racing at the time?
Yeah, definitely. He upped the game again, and everyone was trying to follow him, try and basically the gallop he had up there, and the going up 4 or 5 furlongs, 4.5 furlongs, 3 or 4 times, interval training. Certainly, he set the bar very, very high for the rest in those days.
And then there's that, I was going to say wonderful story, because actually when you hear the words, it is, but actually it's a terrifying story in some way. The concussion that you had one day, and you picked up the racing paper as it was then, and read that you'd left Martin Pipes.
Crazy how concussion can affect you. And I'd had the day at Ascot where I had a fall and watched me talking to the doctor and saying it was fine, and didn't really remember anything till after the last race. And there was a day at Hereford where I was riding one of Martin's, got badly concussed, and didn't know, reading the Sporting Life, and Dunwoody has left Pipe, and I thought, this is bad. Richard Dunwoody, who's also left his wife earlier in the year, and it was all happening in my life at that time. I didn't even remember that I actually started going out with someone else at the time.
It was news to you at the time.
So it was all complete, and then it took about another 6 hours probably before it came back properly. Yeah.
Does that worry you now in any way? Those falls that you had, nigh on 700 odd, the 8 concussions you had. I mean, does it play on your mind now?
Yeah, and you sort of get lesser concussions. Obviously, you can worry about it, and I think the initiative ICHF initiative that Michael Turner set up, Dr. Michael Turner set up, is absolutely fantastic as well. So and hopefully the results from that survey will come through in the next few years, 3 or 4 years, and yeah, should be positive. But you can't dwell on it too long. Hopefully, you know.
Sorry, this is a personal survey to you, or a survey on the effects of concussions?
iChirp is it's into concussion, which he set up probably about 3 years ago, and to sort of really delve into the effects of neurodegenerative diseases, really, that we might suffer from concussion, and also as to why girls get more or suffer more concussions than the guys, really, especially in racing.
I take it at the time it didn't worry you at all. Any injury, it's a case of how quickly you could get back up.
That's it, straight back up. But how dangerous that is when you can be badly concussed one day and then, you know, suffer a second concussion 2 or 3 days later. That can be very, very dangerous. And I was lucky in some way that fall at Ascot that I did get badly concussed. I went and rode a Breeders' Cup winner 3 days later in America.
Yeah. One of a couple out.
Highland Bud. Yeah.
Were there any lengths you wouldn't go to get back on a horse because of the pressure you put on yourself? Was there ever a time where you said, "Hey, look, this isn't right. I can't get back on here"?
Yeah, I imagine there was the odd time, but I think sort of I became a little bit more sensible over those last 4 or 5 years. But I really enjoyed it. Riding in Ireland, and it was finding that balance, and I felt I'd really found that balance in those last 4 or 5 seasons. Loved riding for Edward O'Grady, Dermot Weld out there, the Irish festivals, riding at Galway, Killarney, Tralee during the summer. It was fantastic, and it just kept you fresh. I remember just taking a couple of days off, going to the Monaco Grand Prix one weekend instead of riding. But I think that I don't feel my riding at all suffered from that at all. If anything, it kept it up to the top of its game, really.
And so in some ways you were at your happiest in the game, were you, when you were forced to retire?
Yeah, I did not want to retire yet. You know, I'd love to have kept riding until I was 40, but that was not to be.
Is there a chance you think that had you been able to retire on your own terms, let's say 5 or so years later, you might have stayed in the sport?
I don't know. Maybe not. I always felt that, because I started a sports marketing agency, always felt there's a lot more to life. You know, I'd moved to London about 95, 96 as well, so there's a lot more to life and racing. I love sport as well, you know, off to the rugby later, and so I may have done, but probably not.
What is the next challenge?
I have no idea, Tom. I haven't. Just the main thing now is to sort of get things sorted out in Madrid, and I say just keep things right there. We've just started a marketing agency, a small marketing agent, myself and Olivia. She's developing websites out there as well, doing a little bit of photography, and got a couple of riding holidays this year as well, off to Namibia. And the IJF holidays, we've got one to Montenegro and one to Argentina as well. So there's a bit on this year.